On this episode of Ask Dr. Walt, 5 habits to live 10 years longer or more. And not only will you have more quantity of life, but you'll have more quality of life. And if the title of our first show sounds unbelievable, it most definitely is not. Stay with us, and I'll share with you the secrets to a longer and healthier life.
Today, our health includes our mind, our body, and our spirit. Separating medical facts from fiction is the key that leads to wise decisions about our health and well-being. Unpacking the latest research is vital. Doing what works helps us live our best lives today. How can we live longer? How can we live healthier? Let's ask Dr. Walt on Liftable TV.
Hi everyone, I'm family physician Dr. Walt Larimore, and welcome to our very first episode of Ask Dr. Walt on Liftable TV. My residency in family and sports medicine was at Duke, and I've had the privilege of caring for thousands of patients and delivering over 1,500 babies during my 40-year career. And I've got to tell you, I've had more than one patient tell me, "Doc, if I had known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself." So today, I want to explain to you how to do just that by putting into practice 5 simple habits. National researchers tell us that people using these 5 behavioral skills live 12 to 14 years longer than others. And if you're 50 years old and are doing these 5 behaviors, you'll live almost 50% longer than same-aged people who aren't doing any of these. Another national database showed that those who choose to not practice these 5 lifestyles make up about 3/4 of premature cardiovascular deaths and over half of premature deaths from cancer. Now, before you go getting suspicious on me, I'm not here to sell you supplements or medical food or a diet or anything like that. But like most family physicians, I just want you to have information you need to become more highly healthy. So let me cut to the chase. What are the 5 most important healthy habits for you and your family that you can put into practice starting today? And I bet you can guess some of these. Never smoke. Maintain a normal weight BMI. Participate in 30 or more minutes per day of moderate to vigorous physical activity at least 5 days a week. Drink no alcohol or limit alcohol intake, and consume a high-quality, nutrient-dense diet. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about each of these. So first of all, never smoking. Of course, you know never smoking is the best category, but stopping smoking also puts you in a healthier category. And although cigarette smoking has now reached the lowest level ever recorded among U.S. adults, new forms of smoking are increasing like crazy, like e-cigarettes or vaping or cigarillos or hookah or clove or menthol cigarettes, on and on. But according to the American Cancer Society, people often think some forms of these are safe and don't cause health problems. And this simply isn't true. There is no safe form of tobacco. The American Cancer Society says smoking is still the leading cause of preventable disease and death in the U.S. and accounts for about 1 in 5 deaths. So if you use tobacco and you want to live a longer life with greater quality of life, you need to develop a strategy to stop. And the sooner you do, the better you'll feel, the healthier you'll be, and the better you'll smell. Secondly, maintain a normal weight BMI. Now, BMI stands for Body Mass Index, and it's based upon a calculation that takes into account your height and weight. And there are gobs of BMI calculators on the internet. And they'll show you whether you're underweight, normal weight, overweight, extremely overweight, obese, or the worst category, morbidly or deadly obesity. And obesity in most of the world, especially the U.S., is epidemic. In fact, one national report said that both men and women gained an average of a whopping 24 pounds from 1960 to the year 2000. And over the last 20 years, adults have gained another average of 7 to 8 pounds. We're all getting fatter as a country. Another national report said this: recently, researchers from the CDC tell us that about 1/3 of U.S. adults are obese and another 1/3 are overweight. In other words, over 2/3 of us are either overweight or obese, and unfortunately, our children are following in our footsteps. So if you're extremely overweight or obese, I want you to know that there's hope and help, and we're here to give you that. If you want to live a longer life with greater quality of life, you and your family, you've got to develop a strategy to reduce your weight. And the sooner you do, the better you feel and the better you'll look. Thirdly, participate in 30 minutes or more of physical activity at least 5 days a week. Now, some experts believe the most common health problem in America today is what I like to call sitting disease. What we mean by that is that prolonged sitting or sedentary activity has now been shown by researchers to play a significant role in many of the most troublesome and fatal health issues of our time, from obesity to heart disease to diabetes, even depression. In fact, according to folks at the University of Cambridge, prolonged sitting is twice as likely to lead to premature death as being obese. Being unfit on an exercise test has a worse prognosis for your life expectancy than being hypertensive, being diabetic, or being a current smoker. Regular exercise, just movement, any movement. It could be walking, it could be gardening, it could be standing. But regular exercise increases how long you live, reduces stress and anxiety, reduces fatigue, increases energy, reduces disability, reduces the risk of heart disease, heart attack, premature death, stroke, several types of cancer, improves your mental health, how you look, how you feel. You get in the sense of what's going on. Getting away from the sitting disease and exercise can make a difference. I remember when in our family, when we started improving our nutrition, when Barb, Kate, and I began to improve our nutrition and began to exercise, our physical health, our mental health, and our relational health as a family all improved. Well, also we would add a behavioral activity of drinking no or limited alcohol. If you're going to drink alcohol at all, if you're a woman, limit your alcohol consumption to 1 drink a day. And if you're a man, limit it to 2 drinks a day. Why? Too much alcohol can disturb your sleep. It can affect your mental health. It can increase your risk for some types of cancer. And it can also affect your brain health, increasing your risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. And lastly, consume a high-quality, nutrient-dense diet. Now, it's the last of our behaviors, but it's not the least. Eating well. Increasing the good foods that you eat, the good carbohydrates, the good fats, the good proteins. This improves your weight, improves your sleep, improves your energy, your heart health, your brain health. I could go on and on. In fact, the AARP Global Council on Brain Health said this: a diet rich in fruits and vegetables is associated with better brain health. In fact, those eating at least 1 serving a day of leafy green vegetables have a slower rate of mental decline, a slower rate of decline of testing on memory, a slower rate of losing your thinking skills than people who rarely or never eat vegetables. The council also found, and I thought this was shocking, that consumers who regularly take veggies like kale or spinach or collard greens or lettuce, and they enjoy a mental edge that's the equivalent of being 11 years younger in age. Now, the worst nutritional plan, and I've got to plead guilty because Barb and I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We're Southerners through and through. I call her my grits girl, girls raised in the South. And we grew up with a Southern-style diet. And it's the worst nutrition plan in America. It's a plan with fried food, processed meats, cheesy casserole, eggs, and high amounts of salt, sugar, and saturated fat. The Harvard Health Letter says that diet is especially deadly to African Americans. It increases blood pressure up to killer levels. Well, we know there's bad nutrition plans, but what do you think the best nutrition plan is? And I sort of follow the nutritional experts that are gathered together from around the world each year by U.S. News and World Reports, and they come out in January with a report. And for the last several years, the Mediterranean-style diet has been their #1 diet. It's a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables, fish, whole grains, legumes like beans, lentils, peas, peanuts, nuts, and it's low in meat and dairy. And the U.S. News also rates the Mediterranean-style diet as the best diet overall, the best diet for healthy eating, and the easiest diet to follow. Well, look, we've only just scratched the surface of this topic, and in future shows, we're going to dive deeper and deeper into each of these 5 life-saving and life-prolonging and life-enhancing habits. But just to review, don't smoke, and if you do, stop. Maintain a normal weight, and if you're overweight or obese, figure out ways that work for you and your family to reverse that over time. Even just a little bit makes a huge difference. If you don't move very much, get started and try to work up to at least 150 minutes a week of physical activity. Drink no or limited alcohol. And if you drink more than this, now's the time to cut back. And finally, eat a high-quality nutrition plan that's tasty and that works for you and your family. Well, that's kind of the basics of what this show's going to cover week after week after week, of simple ways you can become more highly healthy, you and your family. But that's enough for me. Let's get to some of your questions. So let's see, Derek, here's the first question. Okay, what can I do? Oh, this is a great question. What can I do if all 5 of these health habits what can I do if I can't do all 5 of these health habits you suggest? What if I only do 4? What if I already have heart disease? Or what if I already have cancer? Super, super question. And the short answer is that the researchers that came up with this data tell us that if you do 1 of these, or 2 of these, or 3 of these, or 4 of these, that will improve by itself the length and quality of your life, even if you have heart disease, even if you have cancer. So it's not like rushing out and trying to do them all at once. It's figuring out what you can easily do first, taking those simple little baby steps, and then improving your health over time. Here's our next question. So it says, Dr. Walt, the life expectancy in America has been going up almost every year. Does all this stuff you're sharing really make any difference or not? That's a fabulous question, because it turns out there's some truth to what you're saying. And the fact is that from 1940 until just a few years ago, the life expectancy in America went up almost every year. In fact, from 1940, 63 years, to not too long ago, almost 79 years of age, a big increase. And there were several reasons for this. I mean, there was improved hygiene, improvements in living standards, improved medical treatments, reduction in smoking, but over the last few years, life expectancy has actually begun to fall almost every year. In fact, globally, the U.S. now has fallen to 43rd in the world when it comes to life expectancy. You may be thinking, well, or asking, what are the countries that are ranked the highest for life expectancy? And I think it's Monaco, Japan, and Singapore are the top 3. But all 3 of those countries, life expectancy is more than 85 years. So what's the difference? Why is our life expectancy now dropping? Well, one reason is this obesity epidemic that's going on. Another is the sitting disease that I told you about. But finally, another one is the growing drug and alcohol abuse problems, especially during our pandemic year. But the main reason, the number one reason that life expectancy is now dropping in America is that the percent of us, the percent of all of us that are following these 5 low-risk lifestyles that I told you about is decreasing. In fact, just over the last 2 decades, the percent of folks in America adhering to these 5 low-risk habits has shrunk in half, from just over 15% of us to well under 8% of us. That means that 92% of you need to get off your duff and need to begin to improve your health for you and your family. Let's see, here's another question. So this person says, heart disease runs in my family. Our doctor says our genetics are what are killing folks in our extended family at a young age. I'm not sure it's even worth trying this stuff. Wow, I am really glad that you wrote in, because I think what I'm going to tell you can change the life in the life expectancy of your family. I mean, cardiologists have actually evaluated families like yours who have genetic variants that cause heart disease and that cause premature death. And guess what? We used to think maybe 84, 87, 90% of our life expectancy was predicted by our genes, and we now know that that's not true. Even if you have a genetic risk for heart disease, even if you have a genetic risk for Alzheimer's, there's a simple way to combat that. It's these 5 habits, particularly exercise. In fact, among participants that in the study that had the highest genetic risk for cardiovascular disease, the highest level of fitness reduced the risk by 50% or more of heart attack, stroke, coronary heart disease. There's a lot that you can do. This is a great question. And by the way, in the future, you'll be able to hear folks asking these questions, and we'll see where people are coming from. For our first program, we don't have that, but we'll have it in the future. But this one says, I work in an office where I'm sitting all day. My days are long. I just don't have time to exercise. Okay, this one gets me a little bit bothered. Let me ask you all a question. Do you have time to pee? You hear what I'm saying? I mean, it's not that you don't have time to exercise. You haven't made it a priority. I mean, we all pee because it at some point becomes a priority. You just can't put it off for 2 days, right? And I'm not fussing at you because I'm fussing at me too. As a physician and as a writer, there's days that I could spend the whole day in the chair. In fact, researchers tell us that Americans are sitting an average of 13 hours a day. And some researchers say that office chairs are worse for our health than smoking and kill more people in America per year than HIV/AIDS. So what can we chair slugs do? Well, let me recommend to you a few things that I do. Move as much as you can. You know, I talked about that 30 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be all at once. It can be added up through the day. Try to build up how long you stand at work. Try to build it up to 2 hours a day, maybe even to 4 hours a day. I mean, the average office worker sits for about 10 hours throughout the average workday. So even just standing burns more calories, builds muscle strength. Maybe have walking or standing meetings. Maybe stand or walk during phone calls. Maybe walk at lunch. Maybe walk during a coffee break. Maybe park further away and walk into the office. The additional muscle activity is going to be linked to lower rates of heart attacks, strokes, diabetes. So the benefits of standing, the benefits of moving go way beyond weight control. There's an old saying that Hippocrates said, he's said to have said, walking is the best medicine. And science and Dr. Walt agrees. Well, I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more. So Derek, let's see what you got. Okay, I've got this one. You talked about the Mediterranean diet. I've traveled a lot, and in each country that borders the Mediterranean Sea, diets can be as different as night and day. Which country's diet do I pick? I think, Barb, we'd go with Italy, wouldn't we? Right, we'd go with Italy. But there isn't a specific Mediterranean diet. I mean, Italians eat differently from Greeks, who eat differently from the Spanish. But folks in these countries have a not so surprising secret. A lifestyle that's active, combined with a diet that's low in red meat, low in sugar, low in saturated fat. It's high in fresh fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and nuts and other healthful foods. And it's not that they don't have sweets and red meat. They just kind of save it for special occasions. And as a result, the people who follow this style of nutrition live longer and suffer fewer chronic diseases, fewer cardiovascular diseases, and fewer cancers than most Americans. Let me tell you a way that we did it. So Barb and I were wanting to improve the nutrition in our family. So we bought 2 cookbooks. One was, I think it was American Heart Association Heart Book, and the other one was the American Dietetic Association. But these are cookbooks chock full of, recipes, healthy recipes. And so the average family eats about 11 meals a month, on average, dinners. So we began to experiment with the different recipes. And one of the first was a lasagna recipe. And we loved it. Our kids loved it. We loved it. In fact, the crew, when we met last night before filming this show, we had that same lasagna recipe. And several members of the crew told Barb, I want that recipe. Find what works for your family that's healthy and put it into practice. Well, maybe one last question. I appreciate the time you guys are giving me. So, Dr. Walt, what's the definition of one drink when it comes to alcohol? Carpe diem. We should have I should have told you that. Forgive me for not doing it. There's this group called the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, and they define what they call moderate drinking. I actually don't like that term. I like the term limited drinking. But anyway, what they say, it's a maximum of 14 drinks for men per week, a maximum of 7 drinks for women per week. And here's what they define as a drink. So 12 ounces of regular beer, and it's about 5% alcohol. Now your craft beers are going to have more alcohol. Malt beers, malt liquors have more alcohol. So 8 to 9 ounces of malt liquor, it's about 7% alcohol. 5 ounces of table wine, and that's wine that has 12% alcohol. And some of our wines have 15, 16, 17%. And if you like the liqueurs, then 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits like gin, rum, whiskey, tequila, vodka, so forth. Well, we need to close our time, and if you're interested in reading more about the information from today's program, there are 2 of my books that you might want to consider picking up at my website, drwalt.com. The first one is Fit Over 50. Now listen, the title's terrible because the principles of this book apply to all of us at all ages. But it's a book that'll give you principles and tips for making simple choices for a healthy, happier you and a healthier, happier family. And the second one is called 10 Essentials of Highly Healthy People, Becoming and Staying Highly Healthy. It's a redo, an update of an old bestseller of mine called 10 Essentials of Highly Healthy People. And we'd love to have your input, your questions in future programs. And so if you're interested in having me answer some questions, drop me a line. The email there is the bottom of your screen. It's drwalt@liftable.tv. I need to know my own email, don't I? Well, I hope you'll drop in next week when I'll be telling you the secrets of having cardiovascular health. And I want to tell you about the 5 numbers that most of you don't know, but all of you need to know to dramatically improve your and your loved one's risk of not having heart attack, heart disease, heart failure, or stroke. But until we're together, to quote the Apostle John, dear friends, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. See you next week.